to?
Yes, I just started it.
Okay, great. All right, well, good morning, everybody. This is the marijuana rulemaking work group for the omnibus bill that was passed, I guess it was in April of this year, so just a couple of months ago. So today we'll be talking about the safe overnight storage of product and cash. So I think we're going to start first. So if you want to go to the next slide, Abby, we'll talk about the agenda real quick. So we'll go around and we'll do introductions here in just a minute and let everybody introduce themselves. I'm happy to see some new faces that I don't know yet. So, interested in hearing from you all. And then I'll go over a couple of ground rules and the purpose and what we're going to try to accomplish and the goal for implementation and how the meetings are going to flow and what the process will be. And then we'll dive into the discussion. Abby's going to give some background information, and Detective Street from the Denver Police Department will provide some data and information as well. And then we really just want to hear from you all for your ideas and suggestions for secure storage of product and cash. So if we want to go to the next slide real quick, we'll just go around with introductions and we can go in the order that they are on the screen here. So sorry, I should have started with, I'm Molly Hupelshane. I'm the Deputy Director of Policy for Denver Excise and Licenses.
Hi, everybody. My name is Abby Borchers. I'm a policy analyst with Denver Excise and Licenses.
Good morning. I'm Kendra Black. I'm a Denver City Council person representing Southeast Denver.
Councilwoman Sitabaca, are you on?
I am, and our screen looks different, I think. So this might be tough, but I'm Candy Sitabaca, the District 9 council person.
So we have Allison Anderson.
Hi, my name is Allison Anderson. I'm the compliance manager for Seed and Smith Cannabis.
Hi, my name is Amy Anderley, and I own and operate legal services at Dispensary Cultivation and MIP here in Denver since 2010.
Hi everyone, Bia Campo. I'm an associate with Yes Strategies. It's really nice to be here.
This is Bruce. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Bruce Nassau, and I'm a CEO and partner in Mile High Medical Cannabis and Three Rivers, which is, that one's located down in Pueblo.
Hi there, I'm Erin Spees, and I'm the Director of Compliance with Native Roots.
Hey, I'm Jarrell Wall. I'm the CEO and owner of Gentleman Quinn's Blunt Company in Denver.
Hi there, Joe Sandoval. I'm the VP of Compliance for Good Chemistry.
Kevin Gallagher, representing Apothecary Farms.
Marco, are you here?
Yes, good morning. Marco Cabanillas. I'm with Gotti. My team reviews redevelopment projects for transportation, compliance with standards and such. I do hear the language in the code saying that these would apply or comply with zoning, public health, building, fire, transportation, infrastructure, etc. So I'm just here to listen and weigh in if I need to.
Thanks.
Hi, Detective Paul Street, Denver Police Department, assigned to the Denver Department of Excise and Licenses.
Hi, I'm Rachel DeVore. I'm the Director of Operations for Colorado Harvest Company.
Good morning, everybody. It's Reggie Newbine. I'm with the Denver City Attorney's Office.
Let's see. I don't know if I don't see Ron on here yet, so we'll go to Sally.
Hi, I'm Sally Vanderveer. I'm CEO and co-owner of Medicine Man. I'm happy to be here.
And Todd. Although I don't see him yet either. And then we do have another couple of city folks on here that I will let introduce themselves. So let me see who I see. I know we have Brian. Brian, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Brian Snow with Excise and Licenses, supervisor of the inspection team.
Great. Let's see who else. Oh, and Daniel.
Good, everyone. Daniel Reed with the Office of Children's Affairs. Good to be here.
And Joey.
Hi, good morning. My name is Joey Pena. I'm a cannabis process navigator for the Department of Excise and Licenses. It's good to see so many of you. Hi, Sally. Haven't seen so many of you in so long. It's nice to see you all this morning.
And Erica.
Morning, everyone. I'm Erica Rogers. I'm also a policy analyst with Excise and Licenses.
Great. And then we have Brian Lucas from Fire. You want to introduce yourself real quick, Brian?
Brian Lucas, Fire Protection Engineer with Denver Fire.
Great. And then one last one, I think, and Corey.
Good morning. My name is Corey Barr. I am the Division Chief of Fire Prevention and the city's Fire Marshal for the Denver Fire Department.
Great. All right. I think that's everybody. Hopefully I got everyone. And again, thank you all for participating, and good to see you all and some fresh new faces that I haven't met before. So we'll just go over a minute for some purpose, or the purpose of this work group and some ground rules. So the purpose is so that we can, you all can provide input and suggestions to the Denver Department of Excise and Licenses as we develop these agency rules. We have two areas of discussion. One is secure storage of marijuana, which is what we'll be talking about today. And the second one is the walk-up and drive-through window, some rules regarding that, which we'll be talking about at the next meeting on June 24th. As a reminder, this is an advisory group, and so we'll review and discuss these options for specific recommendations. We'll take your comments and your recommendations into consideration, and then the final rules will be signed and adopted at a later point. And so each member of the work group is an equal participant in the process and has equal opportunity to voice and contribute ideas. We all come from, different backgrounds, different, areas of expertise. Want to hear from each of you as much as we possibly can so that we can hear from each, individual perspective. As with all work groups, advisory work groups, we're not going to necessarily be working towards consensus, but we want to hear your input so that we can be as informed as possible when we develop these necessary rules. We sent out some information last week to the work group members, to give you some background information. So, and we'll do that again for the meeting on the 24th. So just as much as you can, try to take a look at that information and be prepared for the discussions. And then I don't anticipate it being a problem, but just, with any of these types of work groups, want to make sure that we're speaking respectfully and giving everybody courtesy and not interrupting or anything like that, and respecting everybody's interests and concerns. Go to the next one. Okay. So how we will run these meetings is that we will provide some background information and then we'll pose questions for an open discussion. Any of those suggestions or ideas that we provide are purely for the purpose of guiding the discussion. You are, of course, able to make additional suggestions in addition to what's being provided. We just wanted to come up with some ideas to kind of jumpstart the conversation. We'll provide you with an agenda in advance of each meeting, as well as some of that background information. In addition to the discussion that we'll have here today, you're also welcome to submit additional comments in writing. We'll be recording these meetings and they'll be available to access in the future. So it'll kind of be our documentation of the minutes as well. If you have a question or would like to make a comment, you're welcome as a work group member and as a panelist to just speak up. We just want to avoid interrupting each other as much as possible. But we do have some people viewing this meeting. So, as you start your statement or your question, just please try to announce yourself and again, your affiliation before you speak. If you don't feel like you're able to jump into the conversation, go ahead and use the raise hand feature and we'll call on you. And we'll, pull you into the discussion. You can also use the chat feature, which is only available to the panelists, to say like, I have a question or something like that, or if you want to mention something. But we do want to kind of keep the discussion here in the meeting so that the people that are viewing can hear that discussion, and so that we're not distracted by the chat as well. And then we will hold time at the end of this meeting and the one on the 24th at the end of both meetings for public comment. These meetings are open to the public. So the meeting can be viewed, and we sent out that link through the informational bulletin that was sent last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. Who knows? Time's weird right now. Feel free to share that. We'll do that again for the next meeting on the 24th. And we'll have that link available on our website as well. Members of the public will also be able to submit written comment, and those written comments will be accepted until the date of the public rulemaking hearing, which we have not set yet, but it will be scheduled for a later date. So the way that will work is we'll take this feedback and this input to develop a draft of the rules, and then we'll release that draft probably sometime this summer. And then we'll hold a public hearing for feedback on those draft rules. And then after that hearing, if there are changes that are needed to the rules, those will be made, and then they will be signed and adopted. So as soon as we have a date for that public hearing, we will put that information out, and that will then be the date for written comments to be submitted as well. So I'm just going to quickly go over the main goal of this work group, or of today's discussion, and then I'm going to pass it over to Abby and Detective Street to go over some background information. So the goal of today is to really obtain your input on alternate security measures that are functionally equivalent to the use of a safe for storage of marijuana and cash overnight. Alternative security measures beyond putting product and cash into a safe should be as effective as the safe requirement in the meeting. The goals of deterring burglary. So our goals are to deter burglaries, reduce the rate of successful burglaries, and reduce the amount of marijuana taken in successful burglaries. So Abby will go over the language that was recently adopted in the omnibus bill regarding this new requirement. This requirement is now in ordinance. There was lots and lots of discussion about that as we worked through the legislative process for getting that change into the ordinance and getting that change adopted. So we don't want to go back over the necessity of the requirement. It is there, and Detective Street will provide a little bit of data and information on the importance of the requirement. But really, we're here today to talk about what those alternate security measures are, and not talk about the necessity of the requirement. And again, the goal of that requirement is to deter burglaries, reduce the rate of successful burglaries, and reduce the amount of product or cash taken in successful burglaries. So with that, I will pass it over to Abby to go over some additional background information.
Thanks, Molly. I just wanted to quickly give anybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. The introductions. I think Todd just joined.
Good morning, Todd Altmans, Vice President, Operations, Construction, Live Well.
Perfect, thanks Todd. Anybody else that we missed? Okay, great. All right, so I'm just going to give a little bit of background information on the secure storage requirement itself, and then what rules already exist in state rules related to security at marijuana stores. Some of this might be repetitive for some of you, or might be things that you are already aware of, but I just want to make sure that we're all starting from the same knowledge and we're all working off of the same knowledge of what's already in place. So like Molly said, in the omnibus ordinance that passed back in April, as well as in the hospitality ordinance, there's a requirement for storage of marijuana overnight. I'm actually going to skip that first definition and then circle back to it. But in the Denver Revised Municipal Code, section 6209A3, It says that beginning January 1st, 2022, medical and retail marijuana stores shall install and use a safe in a limited access area, which shall be incorporated into the building structure or securely attached thereto for overnight storage of all processed cannabis and cash. For marijuana-infused products that must be kept refrigerated or frozen, the establishment may lock the refrigerated container or freezer so long as the appliance is affixed to the building structure. Alternatively, a business may utilize security devices such as vaults, strong rooms, or other security features that are functionally equivalent to a safe as determined by department rules. So that last sentence there is really what we're here to talk about today. And then the same requirement exists for retail marijuana, hospitality, and sales businesses because they will have inventory on site. And then the Denver Revised Municipal Code, section 20419, defines a safe as a metal box capable of being locked securely, constructed in a manner to prevent opening by human or mechanical force, or use of common tools, including but not limited to hammers, bolt cutters, crowbars, or pry bars. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about what safety and security requirements already exist in MED rules, because we are going to be talking about some functional equivalent security features, and I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of what's already required and what the minimum standard is for compliance. So MED rule section 3220 governs security alarm systems and lock standards. Each licensed premises is required to have a security alarm system installed by a professional alarm installation company on all perimeter entry points and perimeter windows. Security alarm systems can include hardwired systems, systems interconnected with a radio frequency method, as well as motion detectors, pressure switches, duress alarms, panic alarms, and holdup alarms. Each licensee is required to ensure that its licensed premises are continuously monitored by an alarm monitoring company. And then at all points of ingress and egress, the licensee shall ensure the use of a commercial grade non-residential door lock. Section 6110 of MED rules requires that a retail marijuana store shall not display retail marijuana outside of a designated restricted access area or in a manner in which retail marijuana can be seen from outside the licensed premises. Storage of retail marijuana shall otherwise be maintained in a limited access area or the restricted access area. And then this same requirement exists for medical marijuana stores and for retail marijuana hospitality and sales businesses. And then MED rule section 3225 governs video surveillance. And there's quite a few requirements for video surveillance you can see, so I'll just run through the highlights, but video surveillance equipment must at a minimum consist of digital or network video recordings and cameras that are capable of meeting the recording requirements in the rule. Video monitors, digital archiving devices, and a color printer capable of delivering still photos. Video surveillance has to be equipped with a failure notification system. Licensees are responsible for making sure that surveillance equipment is properly functioning and maintained, and that the playback quality is suitable for viewing, and that the equipment is capturing the identity of all individuals and activities in the monitored areas. All video surveillance equipment has to have sufficient battery backup to support at least 4 hours of recording in the event of a power outage. Camera coverage is required for all restricted access areas, limited access areas, point of sale areas, security rooms, all points of ingress and egress to the limited access areas, all areas where marijuana is displayed for sale, and all points of ingress and egress to the exterior of the licensed premises. Camera placement must be capable of identifying activity occurring within 20 feet of all points of ingress and egress, and must allow for the clear and certain identification of any individual and activities on the licensed premises. Cameras have to be at each point of sale location and must enable the recording of customers and employees' facial features with sufficient clarity to determine identity. All entrances and exits shall be recorded from both indoor and outdoor vantage points. The system must be capable of recording all of the designated surveillance areas in any lighting conditions. All camera views of the limited access areas must be recorded 24 hours a day, but the use of motion detection recording is authorized as long as the licensee can demonstrate that those areas are being adequately recorded. And then all surveillance recordings have to be retained for at least 40 days. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Detective Street to give a little bit of background on the safety requirement.
Yeah, thank you, Abby. Good morning. Good morning, everybody here. Thank you for all being here. I wanted to give or start with a little historical background data on burglaries to marijuana businesses. And this is going back, I had one of our analysts pull data back to 2017. So 2017, there were a total of 78 marijuana business burglaries. 2018, 112, 2019, 115, 2020, 175. Currently to date, 2021, there's been 73 burglaries. This includes attempt burglaries to licensed marijuana businesses. Talking a little bit about dollar value losses, reported dollar value losses, losses from marijuana businesses in these burglaries. 2017, just over $1.2 million. 2018, 1.9 million. 2019, 2.1, and 2020, just over 1.8 million. To date, 2021, reported losses $566,000 in lost product. That can include losses incurred due to damage to your property as well. I'll note here too, for 2020, the breaking down locations a little bit, sales locations are the #1 targeted business location for burglaries. And for 2020, it was roughly 57% of the locations targeted were stores or sales locations. So that's a little data on the burglaries, some numbers to think about. There are other jurisdictions, as many of you are aware, that currently have a safe requirement. Aurora and Boulder are two. I'll give you a little bit of information I've received from Boulder. They have roughly 87 locations, and over the past 3 years, they've reported a total of 10 burglaries or attempt burglaries to their locations. They attribute that in part to their safe requirement. Aurora, same thing. They report decreased losses of product and money and damage to marijuana businesses, at least in part to their safe requirement as well. That's pretty much it on the data. Well, let me give you, I've got a couple other things up here. Just to let you folks know, and we don't want to talk too much about ongoing cases. I can talk offline with you individually if you like. If you were recently burglarized and there's an open case with your business, we can talk a little bit about that. But in 2020, there were a total of 41 arrests made by Denver Police Department of suspects, 41 suspects arrested related to marijuana business burglaries. So that's where we're kind of at on some of the numbers. I'm happy to discuss some of these things more in depth if people have additional questions.
Oh, can you just repeat that data on Aurora and Boulder? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Boulder has roughly 87 locations or licenses. They've reported 10 attempt or successful burglaries to those locations over the past 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20. Aurora reports decreased attempts and successful burglaries to their locations, and they attribute that, at least in part, to their safe requirement.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
And just a couple of thoughts that I'd like to add real quickly too, is that, and just to let you all know, so the last week or so, some of us from Excise and Licenses, and including Detective Street, have been out to a couple of stores that offered us to be able to go out and take a look at some of the things that they've been able to do to protect their business. And a lot of that is in reaction to attempted burglaries or successful burglaries. So we were able to learn a lot from going to look at those places, you know, trying to understand the volume of product that's on the sales floor, you know, the tight, small spaces that people are given in order to be able to move their product off the sales floor at night. But the other thing that I think I also learned is how creative these criminals are in trying to find a way into these businesses. And so I do think, you know, the need for this requirement is important. And what we're really trying to protect is not only the businesses, right? I mean, like it's a benefit to the businesses to protect their investment and protect their business, but also all that product that, you know, if it's product that gets stolen, that gets diverted to the illicit market, possibly into the hands of youth. So that's, you know, a main reason why we have Daniel here from the Office of Children's Affairs. And so just wanted to reiterate again, the importance of the requirement and why we feel it is so important. So.
Okay, I think we can jump back into our discussion questions just to get the conversation started. So some things that we were curious in hearing from you all about are, you know, what security measures do licensees already use above and beyond those state requirements that have helped combat burglaries and have been effective in deterring burglaries? I don't know if Molly, do you want to start, kind of go through one at a time, or do we want to just launch into kind of all of these?
I think they all kind of go together. So I think we can just read through them all quickly and then open up the discussion.
So then what combination of security measures would be as effective as using a safe for overnight storage of marijuana in meeting those security goals that we stated at the beginning? And then what challenges might marijuana businesses face in implementing those additional security measures, and how can those challenges be mitigated? So with that, the floor is open.
I'll go ahead and jump in and start. As our Denver store has been attempted or robbed probably 6 or 7 times over the years. We've been here since 2009. We're an industrial area in District 5. And every time we've been robbed, we've gotten smarter and smarter. And the criminals are getting smarter and smarter, of course. So some things that we do, well, let me back up. Hi, Paul. Paul's great. He's helped me a lot. And I will say we have stores in Aurora and Longmont and Thornton where we have to roll our products into a safe at the end of the night, but that rule was before we built out the building. And so that was something that we were able to plan for while we were constructing our dispensaries. So we've been in this building since 2009. We're crammed in here, and we have a lot of space constraints. So some of the things that we've done to prevent, aside from having a safe room, which is pretty much impossible for us to have here at Medicine Man Denver, we've got 5-point locking doors at all location or at all entrance and exits. I think that's pretty standard now. We ended up having to we could not reinforce our doors strongly enough because of fire code and other codes. So we installed secure external shutters that pull down inside the front of the store and lock to the floor. And those have been the biggest deterrent. You really can't get through those. Well, you can, but it takes a bit to get through those. We have a 3-layer external monitoring. So we have our normal alarms. We have a monitored security system that's motion sensitive. And we also surprisingly have, it's been very effective, just Ring cameras. And the Ring cameras have alerted us enough a couple times at some of the stores just to yell into the microphone and tell the guys to get away. And my hope is that we can, I mean, the burden is on the licensee as usual, and also the risk is with the licensee. And I understand I don't want these products to get into the hands of children at all, but I feel that whatever we come up with, whatever suggestions, should be fairly easy to comply with. And something that we can quickly comply with. Having to redo walls or install, brick is pretty much impossible. And I really don't want to see licensees like me, who've been in town for 10 plus years, not be able to comply because of the constraints of our building. Certainly I want to secure my facility, probably more than the MED wants me to secure my facility, because I've had a lot of money and products stolen from me. But I would just hope that we find some reasonable ways to do this. I have some suggestions related to shuttering, even more, another layer of shutters within my dispensary that shuts over my countertop, so that no one can access where the product is stored. We have locked rooms where the product is stored. Additionally, the modification of premises, perhaps we can waive that fee or waive some of the restrictive requirements associated with that, including the full, inspection of everything, just to waive that fee and have some teamwork with the city to approve whatever changes we've made. I have more ideas, but I'll shut up for now.
No, those are really helpful, and I think some good things that are worth mentioning too, and align with some of the goals from our side too, is we do want to be aware of the impact on the businesses from both cost and time and everything. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of time by the time we adopt these rules and before January 1st to get into compliance. So we are, we do want to be thoughtful about the time that it's going to take the businesses to comply, and that modification of premise process, building permits, those types of things we know are additional barriers. So those are definitely things that we're aware of and thinking through as well. So it's great that you mentioned that.
This is Amy from legal. Could I jump in as well?
Yeah.
I should raise my hand. Hi. So thank you, Sally. She actually went over a lot of sort of our same pain points. We've been around since 2010, and we too have, been burglarized and learned each time and added another layer of security to that. So much like Sally said, we've got the 5-point doors. We actually have our doors reinforced with concrete frames, because we always are thinking about the tools, the crowbars, how are they getting in? And so something that I think is really worth bringing into the conversation is time. It's all about how much time are you giving these criminals to get in, and the more time they have, the more creative and the more tools they're able to use. So I think that really talking about that first layer, how are the alarms being monitored? Sally, you mentioned having additional, I love the ring idea, some of these, but it's about, are they being monitored? Are they calling an owner or a manager? Is that manager responding? Are they notifying the police? This is all about time, because it can be 10 minutes or it can be hours that they have in there if nobody is responding to that. So I think that something that could be done that is minimal, modification of the premises is really to look at what is the policy for how that monitoring is taking place. Once you look at the facility, we too have a very, very small space. And so some of what concerns me is, of course, the modification of premises and how that can be really time consuming, making sure that we're compliant in how we're moving the products around the space if we do have to install something. And then something that we use, if you're familiar with the cages that they store butane containers in, we've had those after our second burglary. We retrofitted 3 of those containers, bolted them to our floors, had a welder weld metal sheets on them so that they're not just the see-through that you would typically find. And then we changed the locking system so that it was bent around the lock, so it would be difficult to get in. You would have to use a combination of drills and tools. And so it's really, for us, that was time. And so we're able to store products in there. something that I want to point out though is where is the value? And the value is typically taken when it's taken in concentrates and concentrate form. Flour takes up a lot of room in the getaway car, and it doesn't have the same, you know, value on the street. So I think when we talk about concentrates, which surprises me because the rules as they're put forth state that for marijuana infused products that must be kept refrigerated or frozen, and many people do with their concentrates, some, not all, what is sufficient is a refrigerator, a container, or a freezer, a refrigerated container or freezer attached to the building floor. To me, that seems like a great safe alternative as well. But you know, that's where the greatest value is going to be, and obviously cash as well. So just a few ideas that I would share of our experiences, but I do know that modifying a premise and some of the smaller spaces, if you're building out a new space, it's different. You can come up with these safe rooms. But it's going to be a little bit more challenging, and the fix shouldn't cost more than the, you know, the benefit to the owner. And yeah, I take it much more personally than the police or the MED, because it's really our money, but you know, you get smart after a while.
And just to complement what Sally and Amy were saying, before this meeting, we had the opportunity to speak with different clients, both, you know, people who have never even been attempted to be robbed, as well as people who have been attempted and their existing security features prevailed, as well as people who have been burglarized. And with speaking with our clients, I think what Sally and Amy were saying resonated really well, which is after an attempt, it's kind of like a learn as you go feature. And I think people are getting smarter in creating their defense mechanisms. And I think what we've heard is that the main concern here is to not have a remedy that is more painful than the disease. And I really, really liked Sally's idea about waiving mods for this particular, should we need, you know, any mods for compliance. So I think that was a really good idea. And I think for us, the main concern is just spatial. Is it possible to be compliant? The last thing that we want is a business to not be compliant and have to close their doors and have, upon inspections by excise and licenses, not pass those inspections on renewal because they simply cannot comply with the new rules. A couple of things that we've heard were, and I would love actually to hear from the fire department, because I know they have suggestions on the types of doors that can and cannot be used for fire prevention as well. But the 9 lock doors were something that we've heard. The magnetic doors was something that I thought was a really good idea as well. The bolts and shutters on windows and doors. And I would also like to hear from DPD on the security guards, because multiple clients told us that the security guards have been a really useful tool. But I know that there is also the risk of, you know, we don't want to save money on product and get somebody shot. So we want to hear about like the violence behind those burglaries, if there is any at all, and how does DPD feel about the security guards, because that's at least, you know, from a policy perspective, it sounds like a really good idea, because you would be, you know, employing more people, you would have a person there, the response time to Amy's point was really fast. So I would love to hear and you know, I'm not married to the idea. I would love to hear how other operators feel. And as far as we go, we would be okay with like shutters on the doors and 9 lock doors, magnetic doors, those reinforcing points of exit and entrance on the buildings.
This is Bruce Nassau from, we go by Lit. In our stores up here, that's Mile High Medical Cannabis, but I'll refer to us as Lit. One area that we need to address is roof entries. We've had various, I've been in the business since 2010. We've had both at grows and at shops, people attempting to come in through shafts on the roof. It's super important to get those secured very well. I don't know what other people's experience has been, but that's been a big one for us. And to a point that was made earlier by Amy, our whole MO is slow them down. If they're going to be trying to get in, make it as tough as hell for them to get in through the front doors. You want them to have, as an example, metal fob entry type methods of getting in to the doors, to the secured areas. And to the extent we can slow them down, that gives law enforcement the opportunity to get people out and see if they can't stop the crime in the process of it taking place. So those are a couple of points that I wanted to make.
This is Kevin Gallagher with Apothecary Farms. Really agree with what everyone's been saying. I think Amy brought up a good point too in terms of how we're considering remote observations or remote monitoring. I think a lot of licensees, when they say they have monitoring, that means they just have cameras. You don't actually have a live body who's actually looking at the screen for live monitoring purposes. When you do have remote observations like that, you actually have a seasoned dispatcher that knows how to communicate with law enforcement. With that, we've actually reached out to security professionals in the area, and having those seasoned dispatchers through remote observations actually takes a 40-minute normal response time to about a 5-minute response time. Again, they know how to talk with law enforcement. It's just not an alarm that goes off. That becomes now the lowest priority. When they're able to actually visually identify what the suspect is doing, what sort of tools that they're using, right, that gives law enforcement the tools that they need to respond in a good amount of time. Additionally, right, having a two-way speaker system through the remote monitoring, that allows the observations person to actually, again, yell at that person who is trying to break in, and most people, right, adhere to that and run away, right? We find that an extremely effective method to deter this crime. Second, right, is going to be steel security doors with magnetic locks, especially those with at least a 2-hour fire metal rating. With the magnetic lock, it actually takes about 18,000 pounds of pressure to get through that door. So you're certainly not using a crowbar to get through that door. And then lastly, there are gates that you can put over displays, all of which that I'm just talking about, I mean, is significantly lower in cost than having to completely, retrofit a licensed premises. Not only is the cost savings there, but this actually is more of a deterrent and certainly a lot more effective than just simply placing product every single day in and out of a safe room. The issue with that too is that the more hands that are touching this product at least twice a day, right, not only does that increase labor and time, but it also throws off inventory, right? It's very easy to misplace this product. Again, the more times you're touching it, the more expensive it is to licensees. And of course, there might be even a diversion issue with that as well. So really thank you for your time and really appreciate your efforts on this. And hopefully we can get some good alternatives here. Thank you.
All right, that was everybody I saw that had their hand up, but are there others?
Hey, sorry, I didn't have my hand up. This is Jerome with
Yeah,
Gentleman
go ahead.
Quins. I definitely understand that this is like more of a bigger issue for stores. I'm a MIP, so I'm not too sure what the statistics are technically for MIPs getting broken into, but we haven't had that much of an issue with that, especially because we're kind of in a high traffic area where you get a lot of police presence. From the people that I've talked to about this issue, I just want to pair it on the idea that, we are able to, with a change in this law, limit the cost of change of premises or modification of premises. That seems like it would go a really long way for a lot of people. ironically enough, just when we were getting started back in 2017 and reading the state laws, we actually implemented a lot of this. Not so much the framing of the doors and things like that. We definitely had a lot of input from the fire department when they came to visit and whatnot. So, obviously we have, the egress, we have plenty of cameras, and, we are actually adding more cameras for a specific room that we have right now, and those things have been working pretty well for us. So just for our interest, I'd say that we haven't had so much of an issue with MIPS having people know what's going on in MIPS, obviously, because a lot of them are around the I-70 corridor, so they're not as easily accessible. And we're straight downtown, so we've been surprised by that as well. But not many people know what goes on inside of MIPS. But at the same time, just hearing from different store owners and friends that we know in the industry, just the idea of change of a modification of premises, will go a long way to limit that cost if we have to in small areas or small shops that are a little bit less accessible to change egress doors and walls and things like that would definitely go a long way for those guys.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to jump in?
I could say something.
Allison?
Yeah. So I totally agree with what Kevin was saying about remote monitoring. I think that's something at Seed and Smith that we're going to move forward with soon, because that is the biggest issue, is slowing them down. And if you don't have someone getting there fast enough, I mean, they can work on the door for as long as they want, and get in eventually. And so we have a security guard in the evening, and we're really wanting to move forward with the remote part. But another thing that our concern is with the modification of premises, because we've been adding cameras, trying to just reinforce our video surveillance. And even just to add one little camera, we've had to submit a modification of premises, and it costs a lot of money, and it makes it frustrating for us to make these changes. And so it would be amazing and very helpful, I think, for everyone if we were required to make these changes to help waive that fee of some sort of way. But yeah, I think all of the ideas I'm hearing are so great, and it sounds like a lot of people are on the same page, so it's just really awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think we're hearing some consistent ideas regarding live monitoring, the shutters, and obviously the modification process and fee. So good comments. Anybody else want to jump in with any other unique strategies that they've used or challenges that they've seen? Yep, Bruce?
Yes, Molly. I'm on the board of the Marijuana Industry Group, former chairman. We put a program together this year with Crime Stoppers, where we are increasing the amount of money people can get for turning over the information that can lead to the arrest of suspected criminals. And we think, while it's not something physical, it's something that helps create a deterrent. And when people start getting turned in, the word will get out, hey, these guys are paying pretty big money over at Crime Stoppers. We believe that will be somewhat of a deterrent, and something that we did earlier this year, as I said previously. So it's a little different approach, but we think it'll help in the long run quite a bit.
This is Amy from legal. I noticed in the chats that there were a couple of questions about modification of premises. And there was a question about what is the cost, being, it's a few $100s and on the local level. But I think that what should also be noted is the process of going through a modification of premises. While it is the cost and you submit it, then you also have a number of different inspections, and there's sort of a time, energy, and effort along with the money that goes with it. So maybe when they're referring to there's been some comments about waiving or changing the modification of premises to suit this particular regulation. Maybe it's just looking at what could be shaved off of that process, not just, obviously financially, we don't want to have to just keep putting out money, because you're going to have to put out money to comply with some of this, but just hoping to clarify that.
Yeah, that helps. And I mean, in making that process more efficient, even outside of these requirements, that making that process as efficient as possible for the businesses is always an ongoing goal for ours. So yeah, that's something we will talk about and think about as we, in the context of this requirement, but also, any suggestions that people have along those lines. Obviously, life safety requirements and the inspections that go along with those are very important. But yeah, anything we can be doing to make that process more efficient, we are always open for, looking for improvements.
Molly, can I ask a question? In terms of timing for like inspections and such, because if whatever solution we come up with requires some mods, will excise and license have, the time and the staff to process a chunk of mods coming in at the same time? Would you guys create like a time frame, up everybody who was already renewed only have to do it up until the next renewal, so we can spread it out, so it's not everybody rushing to excise and licenses to do those mods at once, which I think it would be very harmful for Brian's team as well as for the licensees who are trying to get this done. So I think if we do go in the route that would require any types of mods, we would want to make sure that the inspections process is being considered as well.
Yep, for sure. As you all know, it's not just excise and licenses that's involved in the modification process. And so prioritizing them, or however, we want to say it, but that'll be part of the consideration of the changes as we make them too, and hoping that we can get everybody through the process. We also hope that, the current requirement of requiring a safe and then this additional functional equivalent, maybe there won't be a lot of people that need to do a modification. There could be pretty high compliance already based on what we come up with as the functional equivalent or just the safe requirement in general. We have talked about maybe trying to do a survey so we can get an idea of what we're talking about as far as possible workload. But that will all be part of, how we write the rules and what we take into consideration as part of that. So I saw Rachel with her hand up, and then we'll go to Sally.
Yeah, I don't have a very unique experience. Our Colorado Harvest Company, ours pretty much mirrors what Sally and Amy have shared in terms of us learning a little bit every time, and time being the biggest factor. We do have the armed guards during all of our business hours and as we're closing for the night. And we also have overnight monitoring company here in Colorado that's really great about communicating things to the police. My main concern is on this, the modification, the floor plan changes, and just making sure we pare down that process if the range that we have to fall within is going to require that for a lot of folks. I believe the MED makes you kind of get your paperwork in before you even start your construction and stuff like that. And so it can be a long time frame for people to get that done. And some of these door upgrades and all of that can be like tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how many outside points of access you have. I would also say, like, once we do have this more solidified, it might be nice for licensees to have kind of a cheat sheet of what under this does require a mop, what is something that can wait until your next floor plan at renewal or whatever.
Great suggestion. Thank you. Sally?
My point was too that my Denver store is co-located with a cultivation. So are there any special things that we need to consider when a dispensary is co-located within or with a cultivation? I'm restricted. I'd love to put shutters over some back doors and things like that on my cultivation, but I'm unsure of my fire department, what I can and can't do. Everything I've put forward, I can't do. So I would like to know from the fire department what I can do. So, the burden's always on us, and then we come up with a solution and oh no, you can't do that. So, and to echo what Rachel said, You know, the doors are thousands and thousands of dollars. The shutters are thousands and thousands of dollars. We've made that investment, but a lot of people haven't. So we also have to consider a 6-month time frame for this is burdensome as well.
Yeah. So great points. And we'll see if Brian or anybody from the fire department wants to jump in here. And I think one of the challenges with a co-located facility is that it's occupied after hours, right? And so that's what makes it more difficult. So once the store is empty, there's nobody in it, there's less restrictions around ingress and egress that you would have, as opposed to if there's people in the cultivation facility, even once the store is not outside of sales hours. So I think that's part of the challenge with a co-located facility. And then I don't know if Brian or anybody from the fire department wants to, go through what you can do. But if there's anything you guys want to add, feel free to hear.
I can talk in general. This is Brian with Denver Fire. I can talk in generalities. Every facility is different based on size, and a single exit dispensary may be treated differently than a dispensary that's required to have 2 exits and a dispensary that's attached to a grow. So every facility is slightly different, but in general, security grills, and it's best to review this with an architect. And from the fire department, if you're installing any security grills, we're going to look for a building permit. So that's when that review occurs. But in general, if you have a copy of the fire code or can get your hands on it, the section that is referring to security grills is the fire code or the International Building Code 1010.1.4.4. And basically you're allowed to put a security grill across the front of your building at the main exit only. So you're not allowed to put it on other doors, out the back doors or any other doors. It's meant to and allowed to only secure your main entrance. It can go across your, if you have a storefront with windows or doors, that security grill can be slid across the entire front of the building or however you want. There's requirements on how that security grill locks and how you have the building occupied after you pull the security grill down. So I'm just going to use the instance that in a single exit dispensary, the idea is that you leave the dispensary, pull your security grill down, lock it from the exterior and leave the building so it's not occupied on the inside. If you have a dispensary or space that requires 2 exits, then it gets a little bit tricky on how you're going to lock your security grill, because the code requires that if you're going to have a locked or a security grill over your main entrance, which is also an exit, that security grill be able to be opened from the interior when you have personnel inside of the space. And that has to be able to be opened without any special knowledge. You're not allowed to lock it from the inside or from the outside, because those people need to get out through your security grill. So what that looks like, I'm not sure. In my mind, I would think that you would pull your security grill down. Maybe you're performing some actions inside to redo your cash register or whatever at the end of the day. Then you would leave out the back door, go around the front door and lock the security grate from the outside, and then the building is unoccupied. But at no time should that security grill be locked with people inside of it. That has to be able to be opened without any special knowledge or locking. That section refers you back to a building code section. And basically security grills are allowed in malls. That's where these requirements come from. And there are some additional requirements over there that could be used. I'd like to talk with the building department to see if they would allow those to be used in a dispensary. But they give occupant loads allowed to be inside of the space. So specifically 10 occupants is where they draw the line on a single exit space and you being able to pull that security grill down. And then 50 if you have a 2 exit space. So that's basically the gist of security grills. Indoor security grills are typically not allowed. So you're not allowed to have an occupied room with a man door on it, that you would close the man door and then pull a security grill down in front of it. I don't believe the fire code or building code allows that concept. If you're going down this path, the easiest way from the fire code, I don't know how much product you have to secure, but the easiest way to comply with the fire code is to drop in, not from an exterior perspective, but an interior perspective, is to drop some sort of safe that's not occupied that you could walk into. And I don't know if that size will be enough for you to, you may need a room or a refrigerator inside, but once you have an occupied room inside of your building, you're required to comply with exiting hardware in case someone gets trapped on the inside of that room. They need to have a way out. And the fire code doesn't recognize that by operationally, you're not going to occupy that space. If you did want to use a pull down door on the inside, it is acceptable, but it has to be only a single pull down door. It can't be a pull down door in front of another side hinged swinging door. So like if you wanted to have some sort of pull down overhead door, security door, but then the room on the other side of it would have to be open during that time. That's kind of the overview. If you have some questions, I can maybe elaborate on what you're trying to propose, but it's kind of a quick gist.
Go ahead,
So,
Sally.
yeah, I don't want to keep talking, but you can understand then how, I mean, with all due respect to Brian, and he knows his stuff, it's very complicated. It's not just easy to say, get good doors. And so we have to be very, I think that fire code is going to be the biggest informant of what we do, right? The biggest limitation. And so we have to make sure that we're not asking licensees to do things that they're not allowed to do by fire code. So
absolutely. Yep. So yeah, we've been having these conversations with fire, and they'll definitely be part of the final language as we take a look at that when we finalize it. And we do agree there is like a fine threading of the needle that we have to do here. I think that Brian stated it well in that really the most clear way that complies with the fire code and with this requirement is to not go the functionally equivalent route, but to go the route of just having a safe and storing your product in a safe. And I know that that is not possible for everybody, which is why we have created this functional equivalency. But again, hopefully there's a lot of locations that are already in compliance as a necessity to protect their business and their investment. So, but again, we're hoping that, the safe option is really the best way to protect yourself and your business and the goal of the requirement as well. So, it looks like Erin has her hand up, so we'll give Erin a chance. And then Jarrell and Rachel, Rachel's hand's down now, but Jarrell, is your hand up from before or is that new? Okay. Okay, no problem. All right, Erin, go for it.
Yeah, thanks. Erin from Native Roots here, and wanted to say I really appreciated the insight from fire on this. I think that has always been our biggest challenge as well. And I know several people on the call probably have also experienced poking around in the Denver Fire Code. Nothing makes me feel less competent than looking through the fire code. It's really challenging to see. So it was really helpful just to hear a couple bullet points from Brian on what, a single exit dispensary or similar layouts might look like. And I guess just to pitch one proposal here, I think that a guidance document, maybe that's jointly prepared by fire and Denver police, would be really helpful for us to kind of see the highlight reel instead of trying to navigate through the fire code that's directing us to the building code. Standard common misconceptions or mistakes that dispensaries might make. Things like putting a roll down door in front of an open man door. Those are things that I know we've thought of and celebrated internally as potential solutions, only to discover, like Brian said, that those aren't possible. So if there's a way to put together a reference document for dispensaries, I know that my team in particular would get a ton of use out of that.
Yep, another great suggestion, and we can definitely, as you know, as the rules become finalized, talk about that during the implementation process and the rollout. And another thing that you just brought up too, you know, getting guidance from the police department and the fire department. I know the police department have gone out and done site visits of locations when they've been burglarized and given suggestions around what they can do to protect the business a little bit more. And so, you know, some of the things that they've also suggested and have seen are some environmental design around the outside of the building. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas or suggestions around that. I don't know if it'll necessarily be incorporated into the rules, but we have seen several bits, you know, the ballards outside, or even just some unique landscaping that makes it harder to get to the building itself. Those types of things as well. A common way to get into the building is ramming a car into the building. So.
We have bollards at our Thornton and Longmont locations because they are at surface level. Our Denver location is on a bit of a hill, and Aurora did not allow us to do those. So certainly helpful, not perfect, but helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Something that hasn't been mentioned and I had in my notes is lighting. And how much lighting can actually be a deterrent, and then strobe lighting on top of that. And then just a little something else is, I know that in the past they've mentioned that some of these burglaries have been inside jobs, in that they have been cased and people understand where the products are kept, or, you know, and that is an extra layer. Not that they'd be able to get into these safes or these locked boxes, but just something to think.
Do we have any, this is Bruce, do we have any data from the law enforcement in terms of inside jobs? Our experience has been, yes, we have had inside jobs pulled, but I'd like to know if there are any data available on that.
Yeah, this is Paul Street here. I don't have that data with me today. I'm sure we could look at it and see if there was information gathered during particular investigations that led the investigator to believe that there were folks inside the business that were involved. I know personally that there have been cases like that, and that does occur. So yeah, that's a very real thing, and it has happened, and it continues to happen.
Sophia, I saw something in the chat. Are you looking for the citation from the fire code from Brian again? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, but Aaron kind of deterred me from even going there. I just wanted to take a quick look. But yeah, I think like if we could just have it in writing just for the reference, if I ever want to try, that would be nice. But just because Brian just said it so quick, it was 10:10 and then I missed the rest.
I'll try to post that code section there so you can all read it. But I agree. I forget who made that comment. Reading the fire code isn't anything fun, and it's not like reading the newspaper or a book that's easy to read. It points to different sections, and it's complicated. But I do support some sort of guide. We can probably, hopefully, put our heads together and maybe make it a little easier for you. To maybe summarize some of these requirements. At the end of the day, the fire code will prevail, but maybe we can put some of that in some kind of understandable English for you. Guidelines have worked for us in the past. We've, when this started in 2010, that's how we kind of summarized everything. So I'm a big fan of putting that together. Maybe we can put our heads together with DPD and publish something for you. But I'm going to copy that code section and see if I can paste a picture in the chat for you.
And this is Kevin Gallagher, and not to be redundant, but going back to the remote observations, I mean, what's also great about that is a lot of the remote monitoring companies, a licensee, or any business for that matters, is able to hand them operational procedures, standard procedures. And so even if they notice, even during the day or during normal business hours, let's say like an inside job, like an employee that's deviating from these procedures, they're immediately able to contact the applicable contact over at the business. So really hope that, again, this is considered. And again, I think in combination with that, security shutters, magnetic locks, right, seem permissible under current fire code.
Yeah, I agree with
Great.
Kevin. I think I really like the solutions that were discussed that would like the monitoring with an alarm or some sort of another human with 24/7 eyes on it, the security guards, those that would not need a mod or even going down the fire code bit hole. So those would be our preferred solutions.
Great. Well, we don't need to belabor it too much if we feel like we've gotten all the suggestions. But I do want to just give one more chance for anybody that hasn't had a chance to speak up yet, an opportunity to chime in. So Joe or Todd or anybody else that hasn't had a chance to speak, anything additional that you all want to add?
Sure, I'll jump in real quick. Todd Altman's Live Well. We have 12 licensed facilities in the city and county of Denver, 7 of which are dispensaries. I don't want to be redundant, but I did want to add that the intrusion detection cameras that we have at our stores, we've invested. We approach it with technology and then physical barriers. And we think that the technology has really paid dividends, and hopefully can make an event not be an event. So hopefully the groups that have made those investments with this kind of cameras with 24/7 monitoring can hopefully that takes care of some of the other physical requirements that would have to be implemented into the store architecturally. So that was just the only thing I wanted to add real quick.
Great, thank you.
Molly, I really don't have anything to add at this point. It would be definitely redundant.
Okay, great. Well, this has been a very helpful conversation. As always, if there's anybody that has a light bulb that goes off later, feel free to send us written comment or email us directly as well. The next steps are, we have public comment. I forgot about public comment. So at this point, if anybody that is viewing the building or viewing the meeting as not as a panelist, but just as an attendee and would like to provide public comment, you can just go ahead and raise your hand. And then we'll call on you and Abby can move you to allow for speaking and video if you like. And then we'll just provide each person 2 minutes if they would like to speak. And then we'll close it out after that. So we'll just give it a minute or so to see if there are any attendees that want to sign up. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I'm not seeing any yet. Are you, Abby?
No. Erin, did you have anything else, another thing to add?
Yeah, just one other suggestion about how we actually implement this functionally equivalent standard. I know that there have been an enormous list of best practices that have come up today, and I've taken a lot away from that I plan to share with my facilities team too. But I think the main message here is that every store and every facility is going to have a totally different list of needs. So trying to think about like putting pencil to paper and how we would implement this in a rule. I think the most effective way we could do that would be to kind of have 2 sections. The first would be where licensees could read through the regs that would help classify your facility. So if you have a facility equipped with a vault or a safe that's capable of storing all the cash and product on site overnight, then you fall into this category, right? So your list of requirements is likely shorter. And then if that's not the case, if you aren't equipped with that level of protection immediately around the product, you fall into this other category. So I think looking at the layers too is something a lot of people have brought up, but something we want to offer options for licensees to take each layer, right? Whether it's perimeter monitoring, monitoring on the surrounding premise, and then also like the security that's immediately surrounding the product or immediately surrounding all the potential entry points. I think if we can offer options under each of those headers, and then, in that initial section where we're classifying a facility based on, risk, we could identify how many items do you need to check off in each of these areas, right? Like, what do you need to achieve in order to get to that functionally equivalent? That way we're not being overly prescriptive and requiring somebody who already has like a Fort Knox situation to further shore up their dispensary, right? We can help people diagnose, okay, the risk is super high here, but by implementing this dispatch and remote monitoring that Kevin and several other people brought up, you can kind of drop down your risk level, right? And reduce that action item list. Definitely not an easy thing to write into the code, but I think offering those options and also like offering the opportunity for people to diagnose their facility based on risk is, to me, the way we could like visualize this in the actual code.
Love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I hope Reggie's listening so he can, he'll be the drafter. So he'll have the challenge of figuring that out. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And, our goal is to make it as clear as possible. And the process on the city and the applicant to make it as efficient as possible as well.
Yeah, I think that's helpful feedback. And if anybody else has thoughts on how to make implementation more clear and simpler to comply with and understand, that's helpful feedback as well.
And Councilwoman Black had a question on the chat. I'm pretty sure that all of the items on the MIG list of recommendation were touched here, Councilwoman, just FYI.
Great, thanks.
Yep, I would agree that we've covered all of them. All right, so Bill, won't see any attendees with their hand raised, right, Abby?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody. If you want to make a comment, you can use the raise hand feature. I just wanted to add, we did receive MIG's list and have added it to the written comment record.
All right. So if we don't have anybody that would like to sign up for public comment, then if you just want to go to the last two slides, Abby, real quick.
Sure.
I think this one is just about public comment. And so, oh, sorry, go to that. Yep. So if anybody wants to submit written comment, you can send it to marijuanainfo@denvergov.org. That goes to both the panelists on the work group as well as the attendees viewing or anybody in the public. That the emails can go there. And something that's always helpful for us as we go into drafting the rules is actual language suggestions. That is something that really helps us as we develop the rules. So, the comments and everything were super helpful today, and all the written comments are helpful, but so is the actual suggested language. And so then we'll close out with just a reminder of the next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today, June 24th, at the same time, 9 a.m. Abby will send out the panelist links a day or two before the meeting for you all, and the link for the public will be posted on our website, and we'll send out a reminder bulletin as well. So any closing thoughts from anybody as we give you almost an hour back of your day?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. This is really helpful information.
Yeah.
Thank you, Molly.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Abby.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.